the start of training camp that being in year 2 allows Eli to make more checks at the line, make more calls, get out of good plays, get out of bad plays into good plays. How has that operation been, through 2 games, actually, live action?
Yeah, it's been good. Obviously, we want to, really get in good plays when we can, right, or getting good protections, and I think, obviously being year 2 of the system now, right, going through a whole off season as the guy, going into games, him understanding, okay, hey, when I get this look, this is what we're trying to do. Hey, we want to check to this run against this front, or we want to check to this pass, right? So, or this protection, so we can make sure we pick it up and be in a better situation to help the line out, right? And I think he's been doing a great job of understanding that, and it takes a lot. It makes it a lot easier on me to call plays because I don't have to worry about that stuff as much, right? Because he knows exactly what I'm thinking to do those things. So, that's been a big blessing, and he's taken ownership of that, which I like.
Do you find that that's essentially maybe in every play? Like, how frequently does he get to the line and say, "Oh, I've got to change the protection"?
It just depends. It depends on who we're playing and the situation. He has the freedom. I give the quarterbacks a lot of freedom in practice. I tell him if you're going to mess up in practice, right? If you're going to change a route or change a protection or change a play, do it in practice a bunch, and then I'll coach off of it, right, in the meeting room. And why this was a good check. This wasn't a good check, and so we can know the reasons why we want to do things and not do things. So, he has a lot of freedom to change to a protection or change to a, what we're looking for in the run game, or hey, if we're getting a certain single route, he can change it. And I think you have to do that, with the way college football is becoming. It's the NFL, and offensively, it's always been kind of the college is trickling to the NFL, right? I kind of believe that the NFL and defense is trickling more to college, take away more of the RPOs and passing game. So, you got to be able to get into good plays, and your quarterback's got to be able to understand, what you're looking at, and I think that really helps.
For as effective as Eli has been, just what have the conversations with him been like, just looking at the interceptions both in week 1 and week 2, just how he can learn from those and just to avoid that and grow from it?
Yeah, obviously, those are preventable plays, like those are plays that that's my job to coach off of, right? The first one, he picked the right side of the field, he just didn't throw it. We had the running back and the stick open, and he went backside late, which you can't do, right? You never want to not see what's going on the backside, and that's one of those plays as a quarterback that he knew exactly when he came off the field what happened. It wasn't one like, oh shoot, he knew exactly what he did wrong. And the same thing last week. He steps up to run, and he can make throws on the move. He's been doing a great job with that, right? Making throws on the move. And I'm always on him about, hey man, like when you make a decision, because when he's playing at a really high level, it's when, hey, he's just running right now, or hey, he's stepping up to throw. You know what I'm saying? And that's just a learning process. And I think for him, for him to come off the field and know exactly what he should have done, it just makes us so much easier to move forward to the next play. And I think another thing that's been good about him this year is that when things have maybe didn't work out the way we wanted, and it could be an incompletion or something like that, right? He's done a great job just moving on to the next play, the next drive. Does that make sense? And I think that shows growth and just growing up and kind of being more mature and understand that, listen, football is an up and down game, right? There's going to be some drives where we might score 3 or 4 drives in a row, and then we might have a couple of lapses, right? But hey, how do we now handle the next drive? Which I thought we did the last game. The game got close, and then we made a play when we needed to, and then broke it back open again. So just having that type of confidence and mentality.
Kade, have you been pleased with the offensive line's ability to open up lanes for the running backs?
Yeah, I believe that we've done a pretty dang good job of getting on guys. The first game is always hard because you haven't seen any film from this year, and so many transfers, you really don't know who people have. We created a couple explosives. We're averaging over I think 5 a carry right now, which is really good in the country when it comes to yards per carry. I think in the ACC, for us run the ball, we want to be explosive, right? And we're going to take what the defense gives us, Now, last game, I think, just being honest, I think there was a couple times that we blocked our butts off up front, and a couple times the running backs got tackled one-on-one. There's like 3 or 4 plays where they got to make a play too. Instead of that run being a 5-yard game, it could have been an explosive run. So because we believe that if we get the running backs on the safeties, like we did the first game with Dez, right? He went 70, right? So, we want guys that can make those guys miss, and we can't, we get them on that second, third level, they got to make big plays. But the O-lines, I think, doing a heck of a job. Another thing is, it's like, we're going to, like I said, take what the defense gives us. I think the hitch route that Poppy caught, was a run play that we called, you know, but it was an RPO. And if the Sam stays out the box, I mean, if you watch that film, the left side we caved that thing in, man. I mean, the tackle on the left and the tight end, I mean, we murdered the backside of that play. If the Sam stays out the box, that ball screams down the hash it would have been an explosive run. But instead, we had thrown it out there to the hitch. He makes the guy miss an explosive pass. You know, so you know, we're gonna keep trying to take what the defense gives us. And you play a light box, a little bit what happened last year at the end of the season. Hey, we're gonna run the ball at you, and we're gonna be okay with those 4 or 5 yards. You know what I'm saying? And then hopefully we can break a couple. So that's, you know, that's kind of been our mentality, and I think our line's doing a good job of that.
On the 4th and 1 where Eli took the pass was incomplete to Poppy, were you comfortable with him throwing there, or do you think he should have ran? Because he said he felt like he just needed to make the throw.
You know, I think it just comes down to making the decision. You know, we had the right call. You know, I'm the type of guy who, you know, if I got a chance to throw it down the field in a situation to throw a touchdown, I'm going to do it because, you know, I'm all about the percentages and you know, everyone says run on 4th and 1. Well, you know, if you run it and don't get it, then it's, you know, it's bad on their line, right, or whatever, right? So, you know, we had a chance in that game to not get a bunch of deep coverage on that play, and we got the perfect look. We got a blitz, and we did a hell of a job picking up the blitz. The running back did a great job coming across. They brought the corner to try to bring a guy off the edge, and we picked up the corner. And you know, we had 3 guys running vertical, and I want to just see him obviously stand in there and throw it, right? But if you're going to run, then go run, right? I feel like he went to run, then went to throw, and I can't, you know, you got to make a decision, right? Either throw it or run it. And I think if he would have done those things, I think that play would have been better. But the great thing about him is that he knew when he came off the field, right? I either got to throw it or I got to run it, and that's what we've been preaching, right? Just make a fast decision, and I can live with that.
You had 2 tight ends catch touchdowns on Saturday. Eli said that's the first time he threw a touchdown to a tight end in his career. How comfortable do you feel with the 4 tight ends, or with even ultimate the 4 tight ends that you have to use them in those type of scenarios in the red zone?
Yeah, you know, obviously, you know, for me, you know, I think that room's got a really high football IQ. You know, as a group, man. I think our tight ends, you know, they all understand the system. A couple of them been in the system for now 2 years, you know. And it kind of helps, you know, when you got Jake and Malachi and Altsman, that's 3 guys that have been in the system now for a whole year. So when a transfer comes in, they're not just learning from the coaches, they're learning from the guys in the room, right? Think about last year, everybody was new at that position. So, you know, it makes it a little bit harder to do more. But also, you know, for me, you know, I just kind of, I'm a game planner, you know, like it ain't about throwing it to the tight end or throwing it to the receiver or throwing it to the running back. It's kind of like whatever we can do that game to score a bunch of points and score touchdowns in the red zone. I pride myself in being good in the red zone because I tell our kids all the time, if we're going to drive that ball all the way down the field and do all that work, right, and run the ball and be physical and the line's tired and we're grinding that ball down the field, then we got to dang score touchdowns, right? We don't need to kick field goals. And so we really pride ourselves on scoring touchdowns down there. And you know, whatever that situation is on who can get the ball, then hey, we're going to try to get that guy the ball and try to make it as easy as possible with less reads and try to get guys open so, you know, we can get some easy touchdowns because it's hard to throw the ball down there. When that end zone, when that red zone streaks, you know, it's hard. You have the back of the end zone, which is kind of out of bounds, right? So the defense has an extra defender back there, right? Because you can't run deep down the field when you're in the red zone. So, you know, we want to be able to attack people down there. And hey, this year also we've been great, just like last year. We were great in the goal line running the football. I mean, we've been running it inside the 3-yard line and scoring points. So, you know, we got to be able to do that too and be physical.
What have you described his defense to us yesterday as an unfinished product in 2 games. Just curious how you're feeling about the offense through 2 games, and in other words, what would constitute a finished product on offense in your eyes? How close do you feel like your unit is to being a finished product?
I mean, ACC champ. We should be. I mean, to me, that's being an ACC championship game, right? Like, there's no finished product. I believe, you know, just everything we're preaching every week about getting better every week, right? Like, are we getting better from week 1 to week 2? Are we getting better from week 3 to week 4? Like, we're not coming out to just get through practice. You know, I feel like that's something I believe in. You know, I'm a young guy, but I kind of have an old school mentality because my dad. But I believe in, like, you know, we're never going to be a finished product until the end of the season. I feel like our guys have to come out every week to get better. Because if we don't get better, that's how you lose a game that you're not supposed to lose. And so, you know, I have that mentality that we're going to come out and we're going to be better than last week. And then the next week we're going to be better than that. And hopefully by the end of the season we're in that ACC championship, and that means that we're where we want to be. You know, and that means we reached our ceiling that year. You know, so you know, that's the mindset.
What stood out to you about the brawl last year, and what have you heard about what to expect in Morgantown?
It's an awesome atmosphere, you know. Obviously being at home, you know, helped last year, right? I remember my wife and them going to the game. You know, you got more along with Pitt fans, and but you know, you could just tell the passion of the game, the love of the game, the hatred. It's all there, you know, and it feels like a deep South rivalry, you know. It's real hatred football, and I love that, you know. I think that's what makes the game special. And it means something, you know, and no one wants to go and win at West Virginia more than anybody in this room, and our fans and our boosters and our players. We want to go get a win there, you know, and we want to do that, and we're going to do everything this week to get that job done. And I think that what makes that fun is that they didn't play their best game last week, but like Coach said, they're going to play their best game this week because it's Pitt WVU, you know, so we got to come ready to play.
Kade, how does crowd noise impact you guys running tempo?
I think I think it matters, you know. I really believe that, you know, we got to be really focused. We got to have great communication. You know, it's going to be on the road. You know, Cincinnati was pretty loud last year when we played over there. You know, obviously I've heard, you know, West Virginia, I've never played there, so I've heard it's really loud. And so, you know, for me, man, you know, that's on us as a coaching staff and an offense to really focus and understand. Don't let the stage, you know, get to us, right? Understand that, yes, a rival game, there's going to be emotions, but we got to go out and do our job every play. Because I always say, you know, as long as we do our job and we don't hurt ourselves, we're going to be pretty good on offense every game. And I think we have a chance to score points. If we're hurting ourselves, getting penalties and getting false starts and backing up, then hey, you know, we've been playing pretty good football for the most part the first 2 weeks because we're staying ahead of sticks. And we have to do that this weekend. Definitely on the road versus that environment. We don't want to be second, third, and long with the stadium jumping, right? We don't want that. We want to make sure we're in good down distance so we can communicate and be able to run our whole offense.
What have you liked from the wide receiver room, especially from Blue Hicks, who's in his first year in this offense?
Yeah, you know, I like our, you know, everybody talks about, you know, I think we have talent. I think we have speed, right? Like, I think we can scare people vertically. I think if teams do come up, we can hit plays over the top. I think we can do more out space. I mean, we threw him a freaking jet sweep last week. He makes two guys miss, and, you know, that's a passing play. But really, it's a 20-yard run, you know. We didn't get that in the stat sheet. I mess with Coach Darby all the time because he's like, you just want passing yards, you know. But it's a, you know, it was a jet sweep, and he makes plays. But, you know, when it comes down to it, the one thing I love about that room right now is that we don't have an ego. You know, like, we got guys who want to win. We got guys who are about winning and trying to win a championship. And they don't really care who gets the ball. They just want to, you know, they want to do their job. And when there's a chance to make a play, right, they're going to make a play, you know. You know, Kenny Johnson even came over after the first drive on that bang route that hit him in the hands, and he's like, man, I got to make that play. Like, you know, like, it's not about how many targets. Like, hey, when I get targeted, I got to make a play. You know, so just having that, taking that ownership and buying into the culture that we want on offense, those guys have done that, and I love that group for it.
We got to see Jakarian Turner for the first time this past Saturday. What did you like about his performance, and then what can we expect now that he's in the mix? Yeah,
you know, obviously I liked the first time he carried it. I mean, he hit it up in there on counter. You know, had no fear, man. Put his foot in the ground, and you know, and you saw at the end of the game when he bounced that ball out in space. Now I got on him about to get tackled right there, right? Like, that's one of those runs where, you know, it's a 12-yard game, but I expect him to turn that into a 40-yard game, you know, because he has the speed to do that. You know, he got tripped up. But, you know, the one thing I loved is that when he got down on the goal line, he played low pad level and stuck it up in there and had no fear as a freshman, which you like to see. So just love where he is confident-wise. He missed a lot of camp with the hamstring. So, you know, the one thing about him as a freshman is that he works his butt off. Not many freshmen are in here that early in the morning making sure that he knows the game plan, he knows what's going on. And I think that's why, you know, he was able to get on the field after missing all the camp really with the hamstring, because he knows what's going on for a freshman. I think that's a good thing.
Okay, you talked about the hatred in this rivalry.
Yeah.
A couple months ago, there was a Steelers player, was a West Virginia guy, who wiped his cleats on a Pitt thing, posted on social line. I was at that Steelers practice. Quite a few of your guys were out there.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Is that something you guys have brought up at all this week?
Listen, man, I remember when it happened, you know, it was a big thing, you know, and our players were out there talking and trying to get him going. But, you know, when it comes down to it, we know how big the game is. We know that it matters. You know, I love that our kids right now, man, they're focused on doing their job. They're focused on having a great week of practice. You know, we're just going out there to play the game and play our best, right? Because, you know, we still haven't played our best as a whole team, and we want to go do that, you know, and so I think we had the right mindset, and this team is not worried about the hoopla and all the stuff that's happened. We're worried about going out and just playing good football and doing our job.
In terms of Eli, last year, I felt like just covering him, seemed like there were times he would kind of lock in on something that he really wanted to hit in your offense.
Yeah.
And it would take him some time to like get off of that once it wasn't there. How has he been at that this year as far as maybe just taking what's there and what's available and you coaching him to see that?
Yeah, and I think that's obviously the growth of the system, right? Like when you get pushed into the starting role and your first week with the ones is the week of the game, and it's a new system, and usually the first two reads, right? But when and that was the thing that we really preached in the season last year is like, hey, when we start getting all these different coverages, different looks, like we have to have our answers. And I think this offseason he's done a hell of a job. Obviously getting back really healthy, but just understand the system, and hey, when I do get the wrong coverage or I do get this blitz, where are my answers? Whether it's protection or whether it's the check downs or whether it's the hot. Does that make sense? And that's why I feel like we've only given up 2 sacks. Because we're getting the ball out faster and we're playing faster and we're helping the line out some, and that's what the quarterback's got to do. He's got to know where his answers are at, and it's my job to make sure that he knows where they're at and just trust the system, right? Like this is a quarterback-friendly system, and we have a lot of answers, and we practice throwing it more than probably anybody in the country, because I believe if you can't throw the ball in 1st and 10 or 2nd and 10 versus a great defense, then you're not going to be successful, because you want to be able to do both. You got to be balanced. And so, going into year 2, that's one thing that he's really taken ownership of. Is doing those things, and that's what makes us a lot better.
Last one, Steve. You talked earlier about want to get better every week, but through 2 weeks, do you feel like as a unit the offense is where you expected or where you would hope they would be?
Say that again, sorry.
Do you feel like the offense is where you hoped or expected they would be at this point in the season?
I guess, yeah. I mean, no, I have a high expectation. I feel like we need to get better every week. My expectation every week is to score 50 points. That's the mentality. Like I said, the one year I won a national championship and didn't lose a game at Valdosta State, we averaged 52 a game, and we went 14-0. Why? Because we scored a bunch of points and people couldn't keep up. So, now some of it depends on plays, right? Like we've played probably some of the less snaps per game in the country the first 2 games. I think we played 60-something plays week 1, and we only played like 57, 58 plays last game, I think. So now that also means that we've been explosive. We're creating more bigger plays. I feel like there's always room to improve. Yeah, we scored I think 6 or 7 or 6 out of 9 drives last game or whatever it was, touchdowns. But shoot, why not score 50-something, 60-something? I always get on our guys every week. Guys, we left 3 touchdowns on the field. I'm not happy with scoring 45 or even scoring the week before. I feel like there's a couple drives that we can always get better, and we should have finished those drives, or we should have gained the first down and kept that drive alive, right? So my expectations is to try to be the best we can be and score every drive.
Kade, thank you. Thanks, Kade.
I appreciate